Hi everyone, and welcome back to another Voiceflow tutorial video. Today we are going to be learning about the Google Sheets integration in Voiceflow, which allows us to have dynamic content using a Google Sheet. We'll go over three things in this video. First, we'll tackle how to create or add data to Google Sheets. Second, we'll show you how to pull or retrieve data from Google Sheets. And finally, we'll demonstrate how to update Google Sheets with data captured in Voiceflow. Now, the project I'll be working in will be available to download. Just click the link in the description so you can follow along and try out these features for yourself. So before we dive into how to use Google Sheets, I'm going to quickly explain why this integration is useful. So I have a sample project here, and you can see at the end we are giving the user a random color with the color output variable. Now, what makes Google Sheets useful in this scenario is instead of having to go into Voiceflow or into our project, we could actually change the content of our project from a Google spreadsheet. What's great about this is even if we have a live application, so it's live on the store, we don't have to go through certification again to be able to change the content within our skill. So this is great for entertainment use cases, as well as news, and many other types of scenarios where you need to dynamically update content on a frequent basis. And so the Google Sheets integration is a great fit for that. Okay, awesome. Let's now show you some of the ways you can use Google Sheets in your Voiceflow projects. Okay, so the first thing we're going to want to do is go ahead and get a color from the user. And then we're going to want to add that to our random colors spreadsheet. So how we're going to do that is by using the create data function in our Google integration. And I've actually already configured this, and so I'm going to go ahead and delete this so that we can do this from scratch together. So the first thing we're doing is we're asking the user to say a color. And then from there, we are capturing the user's answer using the color slot in our capture step to save the input into the color input variable. Okay, great. So now let's go ahead and pull out our Google Sheets integration. Drop that right here. And I'm going to name this, so we'll call this create data. And I'm going to color this purple as I like to use purple for our integrations. So now let's connect this up. And when we open the editor for our Google Sheets integration, we can now choose the particular function that we want it to do. And so in this case, we want it to create data. And you can also see there's a question mark icon, which provides a quick little reminder of what each of these functions does. So I'm going to click Create Data, and I'm going to choose which user. And so this is which user account or which Google account your spreadsheet is located in. So I'm going to choose my personal account here. And then from here, we're going to get a list of all the spreadsheets available on that user account. So in this case, I've got the random color spreadsheet here. And now I'm going to need to choose the sheet. And so if we go back to our spreadsheet, we can find out what sheet we're on by looking at the bottom of our spreadsheet. Now, since I've only created one sheet called Colors, I'm going to choose it. And then from there, it's going to instantly populate the headers. And so you might be wondering, well, what are the headers? Where did colors and names magically appear from? Well, headers are pieces of metadata or text in your spreadsheet that exist in the first row of a new column. And for those who have never worked in a spreadsheet application, rows are these horizontal lines and columns are these vertical lines here. And so as I mentioned, a header is in the first row of a new column. And so if I was to add a new header here, this would show up in our Google Sheets integration editor after I refreshed. So in this case, I have the colors header and I also have the names header, but we're not going to use the names header. I just wanted to put that in there to show you as an example. So let's go back to our Voiceflow canvas. And I'm going to fill in this text box where it says column value to create. And this is going to be the color input variable. And this is what houses the information we're getting from our user in our capture step. The next thing we're going to do is hit the next button because we're not putting anything for name, as again, we're not actually going to use that header column. And so we can go ahead and now test the integration. So because we're actually inputting a variable and we don't have a variable, Voiceflow is going to pop up and say, hey, can you please put in a test variable value here so that we can go ahead and test the integration. So I'm going to choose a color that we don't have. So maybe something like maroon. And now we'll run the integration. Great. So it says response created row in sheet colors. And so let's go check in our Google spreadsheet, and there's maroon. Fantastic. So now we know our create value is working. And what you'll notice is with the create function, it's always going to add data to the bottom of the row. And so when we go into the update function later on, we can actually be specific in where we are placing this data in our spreadsheet. But with the create data function, it's always going to just add another row right beneath the most recently completed data. So let's say we run this again. It's going to fill the 15th row here because we just filled the 14th row. So let's go ahead and do that now. I'm going to go into our prototype tab, and I'll hit start test.
Say a color.
Yellow. Okay, great. So you can see here that I've got debug mode turned on, and it looks like it worked. So let's check our spreadsheet, and there's yellow in the 15th row. Great. So that is how to create data using our Google Sheets integration. Next, we're going to learn how to retrieve data using Google Sheets, while also showing you how to pull that data in a random fashion. So in the last section, we showed you how to create data from our random color spreadsheet. Now let's go over how to retrieve data using the Google Sheets integration. So let's dive right in. So first, I'm going to delete this step right here as I've already pre-configured it. And instead, we'll pull out a brand new Google Sheets integration step and we'll build this out together. Okay, so I'm going to first link up both the success and the failure port from the previous step. This is an important thing to do with the Google Sheets integration, as sometimes even though the sheet worked, it reports a failure. And so you just want to make sure that you have both the success and failure ports linked up here. Okay, nice. So I'm going to call this the get data block. And now we're going to want to configure our integration. So we're going to go ahead and click retrieve data this time around. And we're going to select this user here. We're going to choose our random color spreadsheet and select the color sheet. And so here we have the width settings. And so with this, we're going to choose the type of retrieval we want to do. And in this case, we want to retrieve by row number. And so let's pick which color we want to pull here. So let's go with maroon. And that is row 14. So you can see right there. So we're going to want to put in row number 14 here. And for mapping output, we want to add a mapping. And this is where we are choosing what column we're pulling from. And so in this case, we want to pull from the colors column. And so what we did there is we've selected the row, and now we've selected the column, which in this case is the colors column here. And so this maps out to retrieve the data from A14, or this cell right here, which houses the text maroon. So now we're going to want to choose which variable we are pulling or storing this data into. And so in this case, it's color output. So I'm going to hit next, and we can test out our integration. Great, so we can see right there, this is the JSON that is being returned. So that's the API call that the integration is making. And you can see this is working properly, as in here it says we have colors is equal to maroon. Okay, great. And so just to run through this quickly again, we're retrieving data as this user using sheet colors with spreadsheet random colors from this row number. And we are doing it from this column into this variable here. And that's how we built out that functionality. Now what we can actually do is if we want to try and pull random data, we can jump into the WIS settings tab and we can just leave the row number blank. And so I'll click next and then next again. And if I go down to test integration, you'll see there's brown. Now we'll fetch the color yellow, then blue. We're getting lots of different random colors from within our colors column. Great, so let's actually go ahead and test this out. Before we do though, I'm going to quickly change the color of this block just for consistency here. I like to have purple as my integration color. Okay, great. Now we'll go up to the prototype tab and we'll start the test.
Say a color.
Okay, so I'll go with the color green here.
Your random color is blue. Say one more color to update.
Fantastic. And so we can see it pulled a random color in the color output variable in our speak step here. Alrighty, now let's explain how to update data in a Google spreadsheet. Okay, great. So we've gone ahead and we have created data. We've retrieved data, and now we want to update data. So you might be thinking, well, what's the difference between updating data and creating data? Well, with the create function in our Google Sheet, it's always going to create in a sequential fashion. So we don't get to choose, for example, the exact cell we want to plug new data into. So for instance, instead of doing row 17, we want to do row 4. The create data functionality is not going to do that for us. It's just going to continue building data in a downward sequential fashion. However, what the update function allows us to do is to choose a very particular cell that we want to update. So in this case, we could go ahead and change our row 14, which happens to be the color maroon. And so let's show you how to update that exact cell. So let's go ahead and do that. So you'll notice again, I've pre-built this scenario, but we can delete that and start fresh so we can create out this functionality together. So let's pull out a new Google Sheets integration step and let's link this up. And to give some quick context as to what's happening here, we are giving the user their random color from the previous step, and then we are asking them to give us one more color. We're then capturing or storing that response into the color output variable, which is what we're going to use to update our cell. So I'm going to change the name of this block and call this update data. And as I've done before, I'm going to change the color of this block to purple. Okay, cool. So now let's configure our integration. So let's jump into update data, choose our user. We're going to choose the spreadsheet. And now we'll choose the sheet. And then from here, we are choosing the values. And so what we're doing is we're choosing the exact row number we want to update. So in this case, it is row 14. So we can put in 14 here. And then we are choosing what we want to update it with. And so in this case, it's going to be the output variable. So the color output variable that we've created. There we go. And now if we test the integration, it'll pop open a modal, which will ask us to set the test variable. And so we'll put in a new color here. There we go. It says updated rows 14, 14. And there we are. It has updated our spreadsheet. So that is how the update function works. It allows us to be really targeted. Now, another really cool thing is you can actually go ahead and make these variables as well. And so this is how you can start to create some really powerful applications that are very dynamic. So it doesn't always have to be updating the same row number. Instead, you can be doing it dynamically by using a variable. Now, we won't get into that in this video. However, I just wanted to let you know that this is possible, and every single one of these columns in the Google Sheets integration can be a potential variable. So you can make some really, really dynamic, content-driven applications. To recap what we covered in this video, first we learned how to create data using the Google Sheets integration. We then went over how to retrieve data, as well as retrieve random data from our Google Sheet. And then we dove into how to update data in a targeted fashion using the update data functionality. Now, we didn't tackle the delete function in this video, and that's because it works in the exact same way as the update function. So you shouldn't have any problems using it after going through this video. Alrighty. I hope this was useful for you, and I'm excited to see what kind of content-driven applications you build using the Google Sheets integration in Voiceflow.